Hello, I'm Kev Ballantyne, the very proud founder of the City of Bundaberg Drum Corps.
Kev happened to see the Northern Command Band, and this prompted him to start the City of Bundaberg Drum Corps off. We started at Kev and Claire's house in Tumman Street. Young Roy Maguire and Dan Kent and Barry Phillips, myself and Fred Huzzy Smith and Graham McCarthy. No drummers back in those days. We just had little pads that we practiced on until we got to our first play out in 1956. Kev was our instructor, and everyone around Kev's kitchen table. Little story, Warren Ballantyne crawling under the kitchen table as a baby. Inspiration, I think probably a word would come to mind. Kev was very focused. He was a great leader. He wasn't scared to show his emotions and show you where you're going wrong and correct it. And again, this is why I think the City of Bundaberg Drum Corps is where it is today. As a teacher, he was a perfectionist himself. And I think that he expected nothing less from his pupils. Kev Ballantyne was one of the most recognisable faces and names around Bundaberg back in those days.
What sort of man was he? Oh, he was, you know, what people would call a good bloke. Everyone in town knew Dad. You know, oh, you're Kevy Ballantyne's son. Wherever there was music, that's where Dad was, and he loved it that way. Expected nothing less than perfection. The quality and the standard that Dad had was amazing. It still makes me proud to be the bandmaster because of the heritage and the tradition behind the drum corps.
When people see the City of Bundaberg Drum Corps coming, they recognise it by the beats for number one, but also by that uniform. The main band members wear blue lanyards, where the tenor drummers wear red lanyards, and the bass drummers wear their full leopard skin aprons.
I think that was part of the uniqueness of the band, and to see the band marching down the street with our white shirts, black trousers and aprons and the white helmets.
Our first drum major was a chap by the name of Bernie Helmore, male, but that's probably our only male drum major.
But Kev decided he wanted a girl out the front. So when Bernie couldn't do it, he went looking for a girl. And I think Gwen Hatton might have been the very first drum major. The drum major directs the band to whatever direction is required, whether it be a wheel, a halt, forward march, anything that would keep the band moving or stopping.
The style of drumming of the drum corps, the sort of military percussion style, is quite difficult to master. We'll always have our traditional roots, the style of play that we do, the street performances in our full dress uniform. That's been the band right from its inception.
There's no other band before or since has had the rights to call, we are the City of Bundaberg Drum Corps, and our crest is the city crest. We were the first full percussion band in the Southern Hemisphere. Pretty big deal.
Repetition, repetition, repetition.
Six and then we come in. So you can take 10 minutes.
Don't confuse you. Here we go. 1, 2.
There's no music strung to our drums or anything like that. Everything's learned at practice and over and over and over. So that's how we learned it, and that's how we still learn it today.
Kev would spend a lot of time with you, making sure that you're holding the sticks correctly. A lot of emphasis on the mummy-daddy roll, the long roll, and just getting the feel. Everybody wanted to get into the back row because they were the gun drummers, like training a racehorse. We'd go down and we'd do a few hours marching up and down on the sand.
Mr. McLucas was a teacher for the whole band. He was very strict. You didn't call him Bill, you called him Mr. McLucas. When they did a promo video, and it was extremely hot. Actually, I think Two of my girls ended up with a touch of the sun the next day because they just had to keep going until it was exactly right.
For practice night, we'd have the circle of death, we called it. So you'd form up into a circle and then play beats. And when it came to your turn, one at a time going around the circle, if you didn't know the beat, you'd take a step in. And then it was all the peer pressure with having made a mistake, and if you got two wrong, well, goodness me. And if you're a cadet and you started, you wouldn't get to touch a drum for maybe 1 to 2 years. You'd play on tables until you were good enough. So we'd go over to Milliquin Mill on a Sunday in the middle of summer, full dress rehearsal, marching around and around on the hot bitumen. I mean, that was just enough to take it out of anyone. But when we went to a parade where these other bands were falling by the wayside, the drum corps would just keep going.
We always had a competition or a test, as we call it, an annual test. And they were keenly contested, let me tell you. We would judge them on their dress, on uniform, on deportment and stick work. I mean, it wasn't just the trophies, it was bragging rights for the next 12 months.
We used to make a big deal of the Christmas breakup. There'd be all sorts of activities and events. It was always a really family-friendly atmosphere.
It wasn't all about the strict discipline of the drumming and the marching. It was about enjoying each other's company and having fun. The one that stands out the most is the soapbox races that we used to have. So everybody had to make a soapbox out of a bit of timber and a bit of rope steering and axles held on with bent nails, and we'd go up to the top of Wharf Hill. Everybody went home just having enjoyed themselves, but with a little bit of skin missing. In the very early days when we were over at Kevin Clare's house over in Crawford Street, there with the women in there while we're practicing in there, and they're cutting up the material while we're outside and sew the uniforms together and make it. So they had a very important role.
Some of the antics that we won't go through now were quite funny to be around, and some of the guys were good blokes, good value for money. And there was nothing bad about it. Everyone was just having a good time. They enjoyed each other's company. Outside of the band, in the committee, we were blessed to have some really influential businessmen, and they steered the ship. Dad had the music, he had the passion, he had the foresight, but these guys controlled the money. So there was Linton Bullcart, there was Herb Green, there was Joe Wilson, Norm Golgett. My father, Joe Wilson, was the president at the time. They were a group of men who were either businessmen or farmers, and they were progressive, and they said it's about time that the band got its own place. So the opportunity came up to buy the Gospel Hall building from East Bundaberg. That was purchased and was moved over here. An agreement was made with the showgrounds, the Show Society, to be able to place the hall here for a token yearly fee. The mayoral positions were very good to us. They were always supportive of what we're doing and saw that there was an opportunity for the band to promote the city. Then there's others that were well-known names within the community. You couldn't go past Tom McLucas. He was our patron for many years.
This patron's trophy is selected by the members of the drum corps for the person that has a standing in himself, carries out the membership of the drum corps right to the letter.
We haven't actually had a lot of official sponsorships. The two that really stand out would be Bundaberg Rum. We would then have to obviously market their product as best we could. They'd give us samples, but I'm not sure how many of them got to where they were supposed to go, but that's another story. I have to ask somebody else about that. The other keen one was Zildjian Company. One of our old past band members, Donnie Morrison, was the Queensland manager. They gave donations of new cymbals, marching cymbals, and also would supply our drumsticks.
When the bands go away on trips, there's lots of fun times because you're just a bit more relaxed. I know the boys love going on the bus and having their card games up the back.
The middle of the bus, there was no junior could come past the middle of the bus because when you got from there on, that's where the seniors sat and that's where the card game, the 500 was. Now if you're caught reneging, it's a fate worse than death.
In the early years when I joined, I remember the first trip, or the first big trip that I went to was Canberra. So that was pretty awesome for a young kid.
I talked about Errol Noe. It was his birthday and we went to Grafton for the Jacaranda Festival. A group grabbed him, took him over and threw him in the river. We were in Sydney and the older guys said, we're going out. And we were just too young to go out. So they said, you've got to stay home. So we thought we were old enough, so we decided we'd go out and went down to King's Cross and went around the corner. And here's all the senior blokes going, now, what are you doing here?
I took over as drum major from my sister, who was one of the first drum majors. Well, both my brothers ended up being members. It just seemed natural. My 3 daughters have all been drum majors. Yes, it's in the blood.
Certainly not only the Ballantynes, there's been a number of families through the years, the Hoopers, Freemans, the Dulloways, Webb-Paulmans, the Pedersons. There's been quite a few generational families in the band. Well, I don't think we would have lasted 65 years if it wasn't for, that generational pull. If I can bring my young fella in and get a 4th generation of Ballantynes, that'd be brilliant.
We'd have fathers bringing their sons along to join up, and instead of going home, they'd be sitting in the hall here. So it wasn't too long before they found themselves with a pair of sticks in their hands.
Had 1 son in the band, and then 2, then 3, then 4. They weren't just for me, they genuinely loved the band.
Really proud to be a life member of the City of Bundaberg Drum Corps. It was everything for many years. Even after I got married, I was still the drum major for a time.
We obviously joined at a fairly young age. The surname Ballantyne kind of meant that you're almost born into it. Some people are born into generations of farmers. I guess we were, the next generation of drummers.
I was only 6 years old. In 1958, I became the banner carrier. I can hear the people saying, oh, look at the cute little boy out the front.
Always been the City of Bundaberg Drum Corps. So virtually my whole life. In 1965, the band put in a sugar festival queen. They asked this young lady by the name of Jan Trudgeon, and then 1967 we got engaged, and 1968 we got married, and still married to this day. So that's how I met my wife, through the drum corps.
Oh, first memory, I think I was 8. They said, you're coming to drum corps. I said, I don't want to play the drums, thank you very much. But I was told that I was a Ballantyne and you will come and play the drums in the drum corps. The first test I went into, the first year I was in the band, and won first prize. So Dad said, there you go, I told you.
The one that sticks out, certainly in recent times, would be the Anzac Day Parade in Brisbane. You're marching right through the city there on Adelaide Street. They've always got huge crowds, obviously, and just the buildings on either side, those tall buildings, the way the sound reverberates back and forward. It's really unlike any other parade that we go to. It's quite extraordinary. No one saw the the coronavirus coming and we weren't allowed to go and travel. Instead of that, a few of us decided that we'd go out and get our uniforms on and just stand at the end of our driveways. I did that myself on the Dawn Parade. We were there at 5 o'clock, just played a simple beat.
The other one I enjoy intensely is the Anzac Day parades. They're special because of the atmosphere. The local return service groups, they would argue and fight about wanting to march behind the drum corps. They enjoyed the beat, the rhythm, and they found it easy to march to.
You feel like you're 10 foot tall marching along when the crowd's cheering and clapping. It's one of the things that I really do enjoy about the band.
It's a fantastic feeling. I can hear the band in a street parade and I've just got to get to find them. I can remember the very first time I threw my mace up. It was a street parade in Brisbane and I hadn't told anyone I'd been practicing, and I threw it up and caught it. And I think everyone was watching, is she going to catch it or not?
When you've got these tenor drummers flourishing their sticks, police or whatever try and move backwards just to get out of road. Diagram marching when the whole band moves forward of the mass, and then it'll do maybe turns or wheels, and then all of a sudden it would all come back into place again, and there was a band fully formed up in its square formation again.
I can put on a drum and still get a buzz every time I play. And you're not just playing the music, you're actually feeling through your fingers, through the sticks. And if the whole band plays like that, wow, beautiful.
I joined the band shortly after, I think, the 1988 World Expo. So it was pretty exciting actually to be joining, an organisation that was literally on the world stage.
Everybody was really tensed up, and then after it finished, there were 3 ex-drum majors up in the grandstands, all crying, as well as band members.
Expo 88 was just the best thing. We actually had the diagram area marked out in the showgrounds. So we practiced that week after week after week after week. And then when we actually got to Brisbane, to Expo, when we actually did the performance, it was great. Being on that centre stage, you just felt 10 foot tall. We just gelled. We were there. We were so well trained, so well drilled to do this performance that we could do it with our eyes shut. We just felt bulletproof, 10 foot tall. It was amazing.
Bundy Bin's a bit of a light-hearted spin-off of the band itself, playing the beats on wheelie bins and throwing in a few pop songs as well. Just
a familiar tune you'll be used to is Wipeout from the Safaris. We also play all of our drum corps beats on the bins as well.
We would perform at a lot of school fetes, performing at the show. It was good, but some of the best ones were some of the parades, the Sugar Festival, Harvest Festival in the early days, and Light Up Bundy. Our relationship with the Marching Girls goes back a long time, and I think it was because we could play at a steady pace. Surf Lifesavers, in the early days, we would go down to their championships. We'd also go down and help the Bundy team in particular train for national championships.
When we did a street parade in Toowoomba one year, it rained and all the red plumes ran down the back of the boys' white shirts, but we didn't stop. We were invincible.
Apart from going to every Toowoomba Carnival of Flowers, going to every Stanthorpe Apple and Grape Festival to Warana, which is not happening anymore. Expo 88, the Melbourne Moomba Festival twice. We did a tour in 1974, so we went down the coast road and then came back up through towns and cities. We were away for a fortnight. We had the promotional video, so if someone had wanted the drum corps to go, we would send them a promo video and say, well, this is what you're going to get. This is what the drum corps is all about.